So, welcome everybody. I'm kind of excited and nervous all at the same time. It's kind of a juicy mix of things going on. So this thing here, the hero's journey, it sort of arrived at my doorstep, I suppose. I've been involved in stories, for those of you that know me, for years and years and years, and recently I've been building a new workshop. And as I've been building this workshop, which is all about story, it started talking about archetypes and characters. And I was doing some research around that, and the name Joseph Campbell came up, and the hero's journey. So I had a look at that, and I realised that I kind of knew this already. And I kind of knew this because of all the action movies that I watch. And realised that, there's something there that I've always been drawn to. I didn't quite know why. And so I kind of thought about it and went, so how does this sit in with coaching? How does that kind of run parallel? Does it run parallel? How does it work? And so the aim of this evening, I suppose, is to take you on that journey of my thinking around that and to kind of share that and have a conversation with you about it. And then, by all means, ask as many questions as you want. I don't know if I'll answer all of them, but I'll answer some of them, and we'll see how we get on. So, Joseph Campbell is the man that sort of pulled this idea together, or maybe he revealed the idea that already exists. And what he did was he looked at all of these different myths and all of these different ideas that existed within stories and fairy tales, and looked at different cultures. And he looked at what was the same through all these different cultures. What was this through line that was running? And he sort of pulled all this idea together, and he created the hero's journey. I say created, I don't think he made it. I think he just identified it and kind of shared it with us. And then people took this idea and did different things with it. When you have a look at the hero's journey, it's so rich, it's so full, there's so much stuff that you can explore with it. We could be here for weeks and weeks and weeks, but we're not going to do that. We're going to spend a small time. We're going to sort of touch on the surface of it and then allow ourselves to kind of explore our own will, as it were. So he created the hero's journey, and he calls this the monomyth, the myth that kind of pulls all myths together. And before we begin and dive in, I just want to think about a couple of things. So when you think about journey, what does it mean to you? What's a journey for you?
Lifetime.
Lifetime. Wow, that's big. Thank you.
Path you follow.
A path you follow. So
Right.
a lifetime, a path you follow.
Growth.
Growth.
Adventure.
Adventure. Cool. So it's a journey, a path you follow, growth, adventure, a lifetime. Awesome. Now, when you think about hero, what do you think about?
Superman.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Protagonist.
Protagonist. Give us a little bit of information about protagonist.
Well, the person that the story revolves around.
Yeah. Yeah, lovely. Any other thoughts about hero?
Brave.
Brave.
Underdog.
Underdog.
Winner.
The winner.
Somehow there is a positive story that is quite strong and you can identify with.
Yeah. A positive story that's strong that you can identify with. Lovely. Thank you. And when you think about hero, I wonder, what are the qualities that you need to notice within somebody to recognise that they're a hero?
Courage.
Courage.
Real life challenge.
Real life challenge.
Determination.
Determination.
Not following his heart.
Following his heart or her heart. Their heart. The heart.
Fearless.
Fearless. Lovely. Love that word.
Giving.
Giving. Yeah.
Noble.
Noble. Brilliant. Cool. I should have written that list down. That's a great list. And I sort of started thinking about this idea of what is it that do I notice about a hero? And when I thought about that, I thought, is that the thing that we reflect back to our clients as coaches when we're working? Do we allow them to see themselves as heroes? Because I have this idea that both the client and the coach are heroes on a journey. And as we travel on this journey, we kind of crisscross and interact. And sometimes we are the client on the journey, and sometimes we're the coach on the journey. And part of our job as coaches, I suppose, is to reflect those hero qualities to our clients, but also to remind them that they are on a journey. And sometimes, as Stephen said, sometimes it's a lifelong journey. So that's my first thought. So Joseph Campbell breaks it down into 3 sections. He talks about departure, initiation, and return. Return kind of speaks for itself. It's the coming back. The initiation, the journey itself, and what happens as we grow and mature on the journey. And then we have the departure, the beginning of the journey, where it all starts. And that's where we're going to start. The call to adventure. The call to adventure. Now this is the exciting bit. Well, it's all exciting. But this is the bit at the beginning. This is the bit where we go, ooh, there's something going on in my world. I don't quite fit in. I feel a little bit different. Or we go, I'm a bit bored. Where's the excitement? Where's the energy? What do I need? It can come to you perhaps in a dream. You keep having these same dreams about yourself on top of a mountain, looking across that mountain with the wind blowing, and you think to yourself, maybe I'm destined to climb a mountain somewhere. Or maybe you see yourself swimming in the sea, and you go, I don't really like swimming, so what's that call? What's that about? Is it about freedom? What's going on for me? So we have this call that keeps repeating itself until we take up that call. And there's this whole thing when I watched The Matrix. I've watched it a few times, just a few. And one of the things that is really noticeable in it is that Neo's kind of talking about this ordinary world that he's living in. And there must be something else out there. But what's the out there? And he doesn't quite know what that is, but he knows there's something there. There's something calling him. So sometimes this call is something that happens internally for us. Just this feeling that we have. We're going, oh, there's something else. What's that something else? But sometimes that call for adventure comes from the external. Somebody comes along and says, hey, do you know what? You're brilliant at that. I think you should go off and do it. And we go, we are? I am? Should I? Yeah, go and do that. We go, okay, I'll go and do that. I think when our clients come to us as coaches, perhaps that's them answering that call to adventure. Where they've gone, there's something not right with my life. I want to do something. I'm not sure what it is. Help me find out what that something is. And we sit with them and we reflect with them and we pull out information and we allow them to open up and share their ideas until they get to that point where they go, yes, I know what it is. I'm going to go off and do it. What's really interesting with the hero's journey is the hero doesn't always know what the end of the journey is going to bring. They just know that there's a journey to be had. And they decide to go on and embark on that journey. I think something interesting happens when you start to hear this call for adventure, because you start to look at your own reality. You start to examine what's going on within your world. And as you do that, you examine what's going on in your world, you start to go, I know who I am. I get a sense of what my world is like. And although you're being called to an adventure, there's a grounding that happens. Because you kind of go, okay, this is where I'm standing, and I get that. I'm not sure if I want to stay here, because I can hear this thing echoing down the path that I might go on and do, but I know where I am, and I get a sense of who I am. And perhaps you get a sense of who you want to be, or who you don't want to be. But then there's this, refusal of the call. Because we hear the call, somebody says to us, go off and be a fireman. And we go, yeah, I'm going to be a fireman. I'm going to wear the big boots and the hat and hold the hose. And I'm going to be a fireman. And then something happens to us. What happens? The fear. The fear comes along. Am I going to be a good fireman? Am I going to be a good swimmer? Am I going to be a good mountain climber and stand there with the breeze in my hair? Is that going to happen for me or not? Not. We have the fear, and that fear kicks in, and part of that fear, I suppose, is we have the fear of the unknown. Because as I said before, this journey that we're called to, we don't always know where it's going to take us, or what the adventure is going to be like. And because of that, we're a bit worried and we're a bit nervous, and we go, should I do it, or shouldn't I do it? Should I do it, or shouldn't I do it? Now there's something interesting that Joseph Campbell talks about. He says that when we don't hear the call, or when we refuse the call, something very negative starts to happen to us. We start to almost decay inside. And he talks about this idea of there are people that have built these huge empires and all this wealth, but because they haven't heard the call or followed their calling, there's something negative about that, or it never succeeds. They build it and it falls down, they build it and it falls down. So there's something really important about when you hear that call, to answer the call. But I have a question. How many of us have heard the call, but maybe just sidestepped it a little bit, or just ignored it? A show of hands, anybody ever done that? Yeah, anybody want to share the call that they sidestepped? Or is that just way too personal at this time of the morning? Morning? Anybody want to share that thought?
Well, I did have that. I did follow the call, but then I was not very convinced, and I, resumed my normal life, and it completely was the worst 2 or 3 years of my life. So,
that can happen. What happened after that?
well, I decided that I had to go back to my call,
Yeah.
otherwise
Yeah.
it was just not going to work.
There's something interesting. Once you kind of get a sense of what the call is, you can't quite leave it alone, or it doesn't leave you alone. And it keeps coming at you from different angles. Years and years ago, when I was, quite a few years ago, when I was about 16, I had this thought that I'd be a writer. I really liked this idea of being a writer. And back then, the Guardian used to do a little magazine. And on the back of the magazine, they had the Writers' Bureau. And about once a month, I would look at that and fill the form in and then not send it. And for years, I was, I'm not good enough, and my teacher said I wasn't good enough, or my spelling's not very good. And I had all these thoughts, and I refused to hear that call. And then, years and years later, I thought, I'll do some secret writing. There's this thing called the internet. You can do secret blogging. Nobody knows who you are. And you can just write away. And I found that people didn't go, oh my God, that's awful. They went, oh, that's nice, I'm interested in that. And all of a sudden I thought, oh, I can do something with this. And then I started doing more and more, and I kind of found my own voice for how I write and what I write. But for a long time I was refusing that, but it kept coming at me from different angles. People were asking me to do bits of writing, or can you write that up? And we kind of think, oh, I want to, but I don't want to. I want to, but I don't want to. So when we refuse that call, there's this negativity that can set in, this decay that can happen to us. And we can live a really happy life having not taken that calling up, but we kind of know it's there. It kind of hovers just in our peripheral vision, just kind of knocking on the door every now and again. So we've taken the journey on. We've gone, yeah, I'm going to do this. This is cool. I'm going to take it on. And we meet our supernatural aid. So this is where we start to get into myths and metaphor here. This is where we meet a goblin that sits on a crystal, that looks down at us and says, oh, yeah, I can help you. This is where we meet Yoda, or Morpheus, the person that comes to us and says, I'm here to help you on your journey. I'm going to help you on your path. And I think that we as the coach can be that supernatural aid. But I also think we have our supernatural aids as well. We have those people that we follow. We have those blogs that we read, those books that we buy, and we think that these are amazing. Without these, we wouldn't be able to continue on our path. So we have these supernatural aids all around us. And I think one of the things that these aids are is our talisman. There are our crystals, our gems, our books of knowledge. And they help us to kind of move forward in those moments of doubt. We can call on them, and they're there for us. So who's your supernatural aid? Any ideas? Who's your supernatural aid? Yeah, go for it.
The angels.
The angels?
Yeah.
Cool. Lovely.
Very supernatural.
Nice. I like it. Yeah.
For me at the moment is the whole of the animals community.
Cool.
That's where I get my supernatural.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Cool. And of course we've got the animus angels. Anybody else? Okay, so we've got some private supernatural aids out there. Cool. And that's fine. And what's interesting, I think, is as a coach, we're often the supernatural aid to our client. But we have to recognise who's our supernatural aid on this journey. Do we have a mentor? Do we have a community? Do we have our angels? What's helping to support us? Because sometimes we're so busy doing it that we stop looking around to make sure that we're okay. We stop feeding ourselves, whether it's with books or knowledge or seminars or having conversations, because we're so busy out there helping our clients that we forget to help ourselves. And I think that's something that's really, really important. That we help ourselves, that we build ourselves, that we grow ourselves. So then we get to crossing the threshold. So we've thought about it, we've decided to do it, we're stepping forward, we've got our supernatural aid, whether that's a little fairy or a cricket sat on our shoulder, a voice in our ear, a little, one of those, what are they called?
A magic 8-ball?
Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Dice?
No, that's that. It's that. Oh, it'll come to me in about 20 minutes. So we've got our supernatural aid, we've got all of our things together. We might have our team together. It might be like we're going on a quest. So we've got our coach, we've got our supervisor, we've got our fitness person, we've got our health sorted out, and we're off on the quest. And we've got to step over the threshold. And that's the bit where we have to let go of the old world, because we're beginning something new. And that can be quite scary. Because, you know, in our old world, we know what the rules are, we know how to behave, we know what we're supposed to do, and all of a sudden we're going into a different world. It's a bit like going abroad for the first time, and they're speaking a different language, or they're driving on a different side of the road, or they're eating food that you can't quite work out what it is. Everything starts to shift and to change for you. But it's the beginnings, and that beginning has an energy to it and an excitement to it. And I think when we're a coach, one of the things that we do with our clients is we allow them to feel that energy, that excitement, that motivation to keep moving forward. And we also have that memory of that time, maybe when we first came to coaching, and we was like, oh, this is exciting, this is energetic, I've got all these people doing the same thing as me, going down this path. Wow, this is great, I want to do this. And so we reflect that back. But also, we recognise that it's a quest, and we might need a map. We might need to know, where are we going to go on this journey? So we might start thinking about, well, where's the end? Is there an end? Or does it just keep happening and happening and happening? But one of the things that happens as we step over the threshold with our myth and mythology is the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers come along, and the gatekeepers say, are you ready for this journey? Can you do this? And they're often scary, and they're often dragon or lion heads with big feet and talons, and they stand there with giant swords, going, are you ready to begin this journey? And sometimes that's the point where we go, no, I'm not going to do that. It's a great idea. I've got all my talisman, I've got my crystals, I've got my angels, I've got my community, I've got my books, I've read the DVDs, I've watched the DVDs, I've done it, I've got it sorted, and then there's a big scary one. I'm going, okay, I won't do that, I'll just step back. I won't take that journey. Because it's quite scary. And I think those tests are there to make sure that we're ready to take on the journey. I think they're there to make sure that we're, I'm going to say committed to the journey, but I'm not sure if that's the right word. I think when we begin the journey, we're excited. And these gargoyles, these ogres go, have you thought about this? Because once you step over the threshold, that's it. There's no going back. It's really interesting when you start doing personal development or self-development, that sometimes you go, I wish I could just go back to how I was before. Or I didn't notice every twitch of the corner of somebody's lip when they were talking to me, or that their breathing shifted when they answered that question, or that they looked away at that point. I wish I could go back to the point when I didn't notice any of that stuff. I wish I could go back to that point when somebody said something to me and it annoyed me, that I didn't go, oh, what's that about for me? I wish I could just go back and forget that existed. And I think these gatekeepers, they're just there to say, you're going to begin something and everything shifts and changes. Are you ready for that shift and change? And you need to be ready, you need to fight for that shift and change. So we begin our journey and we step into the belly of the well. This is the darkness. This is where we get consumed. Joseph Campbell talks about this is where we die to be reborn. Nice and dramatic. So this is the bit where it ends to begin again. We step into the unknown. And I sort of think to myself, well, that's scary too. It's like this whole journey is full of these scary bits that happen. And we've got our mentor that's there, that's looking after us, supporting us, or our coach, or our talisman. But there's all this scary stuff happening. So we step into this dark place. And we have a look around to see what's going on. And we start to notice this different world that we're in. And we start to understand this different world. And we start to have a look around and go, right, so this is what it is now. And we're not very good at it at this point. We kind of get things a bit wrong, and we make mistakes, and we think we may never escape the whale. And there's a wonderful story where Joseph Campbell talks about a woman who's trapped inside the belly of a whale, and she thinks she's going to be trapped there for eternity. And one day a crow appears. And the crow's having a conversation with her, and they have a bit of dinner, as you do inside a whale. And she can understand the crow, and the crow can understand her, and all of that's wonderful. And she says, I'll just go and get some more water, or wine, I can't remember which. And she goes off and she says, well, whatever you do, don't touch anything. Just leave everything as it is. But the crow's curious. And the crow goes, I'm just having a little peck over here, and a peck over there. And then it sees this thing running across the top. It pecks on it, and it leaks this liquid that tastes really good. So the crow just keeps pecking and drinking and pecking and drinking. And then they realise that it's the artery within the whale, and the whale dies. And it's washed ashore. And then, I was going to say, the farmers, I'm not sure if it's farmers that come along to a beach to chop up whales. But they arrive and they chop up the whale and they open it up and they pull them out from inside the belly of the whale, and she realises that she's free, and this whole time that she's been stuck in that belly of the whale thinking that she could never be free and never go on to another journey or live again, that actually she just needed to make some small changes. And those changes was allowing that crow to fly around and to exist. I kind of wonder, well, what's my crow? What's the bit of me that I need to let fly and do what it needs to do in order to get me further on in my journey? What's your crow? What's the thing that you need to let go of? Or to let fly, or to let out of its cage, so it continue to do what it needs to do so you can have your journey? What's that thing that you do that holds you back? Well, we all know we've got something that we do, like not answering emails, or not returning that call, or not joining that webinar, or not setting up that thing that we said we were going to set up. That thing we just use to hold us back because we're still a bit scared or a bit nervous about what the journey might bring for us. So I'm going to pause there a second. Any thoughts or any questions? So here we are, initiation. We're on our journey. This is where all the learning begins. And of course, in order for there to be learning, we've got to have the trials and tribulations, the tough stuff, the hard work. But this is where we grow, this is where we develop, and this is where we need our support. So often as a coach, you might find that your clients are coming to us when they're at this point, when everything just feels hard and tough, and they're looking to find some answers and some ways out. Or we might be at this point, ourselves as coaches, where we're going, I don't have a niche, I don't have any clients, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't have a website. I've got some business cards, but I've got the wrong number in. So we're just finding it tough, we're finding it all difficult. And it's that difficulty, that's the place where we do our learning and we do our growing. And I suppose that's where all the challenges come come in. And one of those challenges is we start to look at, well, what's true and what's not true. I remember when I started exploring this idea of, well, is it true or is it not true? Is it just in my head? Is it just a projection of my mind? Is it just my thinking that's creating my reality? When I first got told that, I thought, well, my thinking is creating my reality? No, surely my reality is there and that creates my thinking. No, Robert, it's the other way around. What? It didn't make sense to me. And that was one of those challenges, those things where you have to wrestle with and go, okay, so the way that I think about stuff is how I'll feel about stuff. Okay, so I need to shift my thinking in order to shift my feeling. Okay, and on a good day, that works really, really well. And then there's this shift about our beliefs. We have our beliefs about how the world works and how things happen, and then somebody comes along and they say to us, but if you shift these beliefs, if you get rid of those old beliefs and bring some new beliefs in, something different can happen in your world. And I think that can be really challenging sometimes, because our beliefs, as we know, are really strong and they're really kind of ingrained within us. They're part of our whole value system. They're part of what drives us and moves us forward. And when people start talking about shifting or looking at new beliefs or new ideas, we start going, I don't know if I want to get rid of that idea because I feel really comfortable if I hold on to this belief. If I let go of it and put something else there, I don't know how I'm going to feel. And I know that when I'm working with clients, one of the things when we're shifting beliefs is making sure that they're happy and congruent with the new belief that they've created. And sometimes I go, as coaches, are we always happy and congruent with the beliefs that we create? Are we doing a bit of should there? Are we? I know I am sometimes. I should eat healthily. I should drink lots of water. I should exercise. And on a good day, I do some of those things. But not always. And I suppose when you're tested and you're pushed and you're challenged, you start to build up a resilience. And on that road, you start to become the warrior. You start to become battle-hardened. You start to make the changes that you need to make. You start to recognise that in order to face all of these trials and tribulations, you can't stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning watching Family Guy. You have to go to sleep so that you get enough sleep. Okay, so I'll go to sleep. Then you have to get up early so you can face the day. But it's not just about getting up early so you can face the day. You've got to get up early and you've got to eat the right foods. Okay, so I'll get up early, I'll eat the right foods, I'll do the right exercise, I'll do the right meditation. If there is a right and a wrong, I'm not sure, I'm not going to get into that one right now. But we'll begin all of those things and we become a warrior. And we go, okay, now I'm ready, I've got the energy to fight this fight, to go on this battle, to go on this journey. And with that energy and with all of that sort of that battle hardness, and as we become the warrior and we build on all of these new experiences that are coming to us, we start to go, okay, yeah, all right, I can do this. And we start to get that feeling where we go, okay, so there's another battle happening, but I don't go, oh my God, another one. You go, okay, so how do I deal with this one? What skills have I got? What skills have I learned? And what things do I need to find out in order to deal with this battle? Do I use my sword or do I use my thinking? How does it work for me now? And then we meet the goddess. Now, in the movies that I watch, she's normally quite scantily clad. But not always. We meet the goddess. And the goddess is, I suppose, the oracle. The goddess is the one that says to us, there's something that you didn't realise, or you didn't notice, or you didn't know, I'm just going to point it out to you. Now sometimes the goddess will tell you exactly what that is. She'll say, you need to go and read that book. That's where the answer sits for you. Or she might be quite mystical and say, well, on a Wednesday, something will change. And you'll go, what's that all about? What's the Wednesday? What's the something? Is it this Wednesday? Next Wednesday? When's this change going to happen? And she sort of allows you to step out of that unconscious, just kind of doing stuff, into a conscious thinking about stuff, and really looking at your world and what's going on for you. So Neo meets the oracle on numerous occasions. But she never gives him a straight answer. She always gives him this mystical thing. And he's always going, I just want to know what the answer is. And I suppose part of this is this idea of, if I just tell you what the answer is, if I just tell you how to do it, what's good about that? But when you work out how to do it, and you work out what the answers are, there's a power in that. And we do that as coaches. When our clients come to us and they say, I want more energy in my life, we don't go, sleep more, drink more water. We go, well, what could you do to allow that to happen? What are you not doing? What changes could you make? Who has more energy in your world that you see? What are they doing? How could you model their behaviour? And so we start to find these answers for ourselves. The oracle kind of helps us, points us in that direction, until we get to that aha moment. That moment we go, oh, it's this! That's what I need to do. That's my calling. Perhaps that's the moment when you go, that's my niche, that's who I need to work with. Or perhaps that's the moment you go, there's the coach for me. I need to work with that person. So I hear of people that see a coach on a YouTube channel that lives halfway around the world, and they go, that's the person I need to work with. That resonates with me, so I'm going to save up and go and do that. So that's that moment. And the oracle, the goddess, kind of points us there, and she can be quite mystical. It doesn't always have to be a she, by the way. And she doesn't always have to be scantily clad. But she gives us those ideas that enable us to go in that right direction. Apotheosis. I had to Google how to say that. She made me laugh. But when we have that aha moment, then something magical starts to happen. Because we get into flow. And we get into this place where things start coming together. And stuff starts coming to us. So before, we were battling to try and make stuff happen. And we were doing the big fights. But all of a sudden, it's coming to me. I've kind of built up this momentum where stuff starts to happen. It's starting to work. I've worked hard enough, long enough. I've done the right things. I've thought about it. I've allowed myself to sit and think and be in that moment. And now it's working. I've done all of my battling. What can be quite interesting about this moment is often we don't see the battles before this moment. We see the moment happening. So we see somebody and we go, oh my God, they're doing really well. How did they get there? Life's just happened for them. Aren't they lucky? But for 10 years, they've been out there in the wilderness with their sword and the dragons. And they've been fighting and they've been doing battle. And they've been getting themselves ready for that moment. But we don't always see those moments. When we work with our clients as coaches, we often see those moments before they get to this point. We see all the hard work that they put in. When we work with each other as coaches, we see the hard work that we put in. But sometimes we don't recognise that from a distance. So we get into flow. It all starts to come together. It becomes a place of love. In the book, The Man with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell, he talks about it being the ecstasy moment, the climax moment. I thought, the climax coaching moment. Could you actually use that? What sort of clients would you get if you did? Be interesting clients. But he talks about this wonderful place, and that's the place where we become unstoppable. And I think we kind of touch on this place from time to time. We have those moments in our lives where we go, I can do anything, and it's all working out. And when it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. I just learn from that, and I keep going, and I can do anything. Put your hand up if you've ever had one of those moments. Yeah. And they feel good, don't they? You feel like, yeah, I can take on the world. I can fight all the dragons. And we keep moving forward and we're doing these amazing and wonderful things. And then we get there. We get to that magic moment, the ultimate boon, the ultimate treasure, that big thing. And sometimes we don't even realise that that was what we were looking for when we were on our journey. And it appears. The golden fleece, the food of the gods, whatever that magical thing might be for you, diamonds and jewels, business, whatever it is, we find it, we have it, it's there, we go, oh, yes, This is amazing. And Joseph Campbell, he talks about this idea of being careful what you wish for, being careful what you want your ultimate boon to be. He talks about this idea that it's about love and what you can give back to the world, not just about what you can take personally for yourself. And he tells the story of King Midas. So there we are, King Midas, and what does he want? He wants everything that he touches to turn to gold. Sounds like a pretty good idea. I just had this thought. Skittles do the same, don't they?
Skittles.
So, you know, gold, Skittles. You can make the choice, but everything he touches turns to gold. And when he gets his wish, and he touches the stuff around him, he's like, oh, this is amazing. So he orders a big feast, a big banquet. And he grabs a bit of chicken and rips it off, and it turns to gold. And he grabs a goblet of wine, it turns to liquid gold. And in that moment, he realizes his mistake. And he weeps, and his daughter sees him weeping, and she comes over to comfort him. And of course, he takes her in his arms, and she turns to gold. And he realizes that his search had been about wealth, and it hadn't been about people, or love, or giving, or community, or whatever those things might be for you. And that's what happened to him. So there's a warning here as well. Be aware of what you're seeking, what you're looking for. So, if you had your ultimate boon, what would your ultimate boon be? Have a chat with the person beside you. 2 minutes. Off you go.
I'm getting confused because while you're talking, I'm getting ideas from something else. Several things though. Do I have to? No, I think it's not one. Well, yeah, I mean, sitting here and thinking stuff that's happening now. I've done the 3 basic
Let's come back together.
They need to work on that.
So, would anybody like to share their ultimate boon? Yeah.
Sufficient financial flexibility to be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want.
Nice. Sounds like a good one to me. Lovely. Thank you. So what would help you to do that?
Or marketing and sales.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Somebody else. Yeah.
I'd say to really fully understand the true nature of reality, and then to share it with other people, so that people can kind of see the prism that we're in.
Brilliant. Say that all again for me. Say that all again for me.
So for me to, because I think for me I've read a lot of books, I've got loads of books, some of which I've actually read, and I've kind of got an appreciation on an intellectual level about what the true nature of reality is all kind of part of, but I don't fully know with every cell in my body, and I want to experience that and then to kind of share that and allow other people to taste it and see the kind of this world be, well, kind of like the Matrix, or like, it's that, so these illusions just become shattered, we can all live in peace and harmony.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Another share. Yeah.
Yeah, the sort of vision I've got in mind is a very sort of 60s hippie scene, which is sort of shared amongst the whole world, the peace, love and understanding and tolerance kind of thing all around, which I think would make a lovely world.
Cool.
So,
Brilliant. Nice. So just imagine you've got that ultimate boon. You've captured that thing, whatever that thing might be. Okay? Because now you have to return. You've done your battling. You've captured it, however you've managed to do that, whether it's through a thought or a physical action. And you're going to head back to the world from which you came. But one of the first things that happens is we refuse to go back. And why do we refuse to go back? Fear. What? Fear. Yeah, fear. So we go, I'm afraid. Because when we go on this change, or rather when we go on this journey, we change. And we recognise that we're changing, that something's happening to us. And then we go, but when I get back to the world, how will people feel about the change to me? Will they still appreciate me? Will they still want me? Will they still like me? Will they still care for me? But not only that, will they understand me? I remember the very first coaching seminar I went to, and I learned about the GROW model. And I thought, this is magic. I'm going to give this magic to everybody I know. And I kept saying to people, what's your goal? What's the reality? What have you done about it? What are your options? And they were just like, what are you doing? What's happened to you? And I remember stepping back and going, I won't do that anymore because my world seems to be rejecting me. Because I've gone on this journey, I've learnt this stuff, I'm going to share it with my world, but they're not hearing it. Or maybe I can't find the right words to share it. And so I was just full of fear. I didn't know if would it work. And sometimes we have these great ideas. We've been on our journey, we've read the books, we've got the knowledge, we go, this is what I'm going to do. And then we go, oh, but are they ready for it? Has the world reached that point where they can understand it or accept it? Can I share it with them well enough for them to understand it and accept it? There's a story of I think it's, I can't remember his name, but he goes into a mountain and he breaks through down to the demons in hell and he battles with the demons to get this bit of knowledge that's been kept away from the people, and he gets the knowledge and he comes battling back, and he spent 1,000,000 years doing this battle, probably not 1,000,000, but some time doing this battle, and he gets back to the cave from where he started, and he steps out of the cave and he sees the world and goes, oh, the world's changed, and now they're not ready for what I've got to give them. They won't be able to take it or understand it. So I'm going to go and sit in my cave until the world's ready. Now, sometimes the world isn't quite ready for us. But I have a worry about going back into the cave. Because what happens if we just stay in the cave?
Do you not become like demons then? Or you think
Maybe.
holding the knowledge?
Oh, you might be. I haven't thought of that. But yeah, maybe we become like the demons where we're just holding on to the knowledge and not sharing it. I think part of this challenge here is, how do we work out how to share it? How do we work out how to enable others to access what we've learned or understood? Is that simply by telling them? Is it by writing a book? Is it by writing a film or making a film or doing webinars? Is it about holding conferences? How do we get that information out there to them? But then we get the magic flight. I like this bit. Because this bit's where you get the gods either with you or against you. Now, what happens if the gods are with you?
But you fly.
You fly. It all goes smoothly. Everything works how it's supposed to work. It feels like it's effortless. Whether it's on your magic carpet or your teleporter, whatever that thing is. My brain just jumped there for teleporter. I was trying to think of what the Star Trek thing was called. Communicator! It was a communicator! That's what it was called. Okay, thank you. So the gods are with you and everything is easy and wonderful and it feels absolutely great. But sometimes in these stories, the gods are not with you. And they send demons and more challenges and more battles. So you've got this great thing, you're trying to put it out there, but everything seems to be going wrong for you. Have you had that moment, that feeling where you go, but I just want to do it, but the doing doesn't kind of happen. There's all this in the way. Whether it's, the other day I just wanted to go online to find something, but of course the internet, the wireless went down, so I couldn't do the do. All these things get in the way. The website crashes, or the person who's supposed to meet goes on holiday. Things get in the way and stop it from happening. Now, one of the things to do on that magic flight is, if the gods are against you for whatever reason, to keep being strong, to remember that we were the warrior, to remember that we've done all the battle stuff, we're battle hardened and we're ready, and we can continue that fight. When we're working with our clients, this is the point where we're reflecting with them of all the things that they've achieved, all the things that they've done, therefore the things that they can do. When we're talking to our supervisor, they're reflecting back to us all the things that we've done, all the things that we can do. So that we continue to move forward. Because we can get stuck there. We can go, well, I went away, I did all that learning, it was really hard, I sacrificed stuff, I've come back, and now I can't seem to make it happen. I'm going to go off and do what I was doing before. I think sometimes with coaches, when the gods are against us, I think it's marketing and sales. How many of us coaches find it really hard to put a price on what we do and to arc to that price quite happily? I see those knowing nods. So we get the rescue from without. And that's where we get the helping hand. That's where somebody reaches in and says, take hold, I'll help you up, I'll help you to do this. Or where somebody takes a foot and they kick you forward and they say, go on and do this. Stop holding yourself back. And because it's a helping hand, there's something about having to let go of ego. Because we have to accept the help. So we can't be full of ego and accept the help. It kind of clashes on itself. So we kind of go, okay, I'll accept your help. And maybe it's simply going, do you know what? I'll accept your help on how do I market myself. Or maybe it's going, I'll accept your help on doing seminars. Or maybe it's just, I'll accept your help and I'll practice and you can give me some feedback. But in order to do that, we need to let go of that ego bit. That bit that's telling us that we want to be not excellent, we want to be perfect. Search for excellence, perfection can be quite tricky. So, we've got the help, and it's now time to cross back into the world from which we came. We've been on this exciting adventure. We've learned lots of new stuff. We've met demons, we've met goddesses, we've met oracles. And on this journey, we now need to step across back into the world from which we came. Some people might call it the real world or the known world. And when we get there, because it's a place that we've been to before, sometimes it triggers all of our old habits and our old behaviours. And we have to work really hard to make sure that we don't slip back into how we've always been. Because sometimes the people around us have stayed exactly the same. And so when we get back to that place, we become how we were back then. So where does this show itself up? I think it shows itself up family Christmas dinner. This is where I think this shows up. So we're all grown up. We're all living our lives, doing things, what we want to do. It's nearly 8 o'clock and we're still out. Our mums haven't called us to say come home. So we're doing okay. But we go back home for Christmas dinner and we become the child. And our mum becomes the mother and tells us what to do. And we're like, wait a minute, what's going on? And our brothers and sisters, they trigger that old behaviour. We start fighting and arguing with them. I'm sure that alcohol helps in some way with all of this. But it kind of shows up there, I think. I think it also shows up with our friends. There are friends that we have that when we're around them, we go, why was I behaving like that? What happened to me? Why did I slip back into that old behaviour? Now, sometimes it's lovely. Sometimes we hang out with our old friends and we go, oh, that was great for a day or for that hour. But now I'm going to carry on being that person that I became. But it's really easy to slip back because it can be a challenge. And it's, habits take time. So new habits take time to really get ingrained. And our old habits, they've done all the ingraining. So we just slip back into them really easily. So we cross the threshold. We step back into the world. And we become the master of two worlds. How do we become the master of two worlds? Well, what we have to do is remember the journey that we've been on. So we can stand in that journey world and go, oh, that's the journey. This is where things are hard, this is where things are tough. I have to remember that I can get through this, that I need to call for help when I need it, I need to use my talismans when I need them, reach out for that helping hand when I need it, and then I'm in this world where I can look back at that and I can share it with others. So we're in their world, the world of the now, and our journey world. And we're stepping from one side to the other side. I think it's one of the reasons why, as a coach, it's important to be coached. So we can see things from both sides. Because if we're just coaching all the time, we start to forget what that is like being on the other side of the table. And there's a thing that Nietzsche says, I'm just going to read this out, and he calls it the cosmic dancer. He says, the cosmic dancer does not rest heavily in a single spot, but gaily, lightly, turns and leaps from one position to another. It is possible to speak only from one point at a time, but that does not invalidate the insight of the rest. I take from that you can speak from any point, but only one at a time. So you need to be the master of two worlds, jumping between the world you're in now and the world of the journey. So on that note, I've kind of come to the end of me speaking. And I suppose the question that I would ask you, and ask you to maybe have a chat with somebody before you do some feeding back, is what have you taken from this idea of the hero's journey? I'm not asking compound questions just because I can. What have you taken from this idea of this journey? How might you use the journey? Has this journey been, to understand this journey, has that been useful for you? So just have a quick chat. We'll do a little feedback. Off you
go. Okay, where did you come from that? No, I like it. I think I like it. Yeah, it's useful. Football, heading to yeah, it's useful for me. I think I can definitely it will, because I've been doing a long time now, actually it was never about seeing the future. It was more about helping those so now I'm not doing travel. There's actually so much more related to I'm teaching just about to come back. How about the choice? There's always a choice. I always used to say that because you know it's like talked about I mean, there's two kinds of teaching, not from a child perspective, and they completely misinterpret it. I'm like, stop, tell you that's why you're Paris. It's like, that's what it's when he said, yeah, how do you master the words? I was thinking about my last night, I started with Greenwich, and he went to say, and you have the sign, and you are standing on something, and I saw myself being there, and thinking, words,
Let's do a little bit of sharing. Who would like to share? Yeah.
I can really, we were just discussing that, I can see this a lot. So people come to us because they're unhappy with job or relationship. They think if those change, they'll be happy, but it's kind of almost like a symptom or a signpost to something more fundamental. But I think part of the challenge is how you get them to realise there's something bigger going on. There's this whole calling. Because Matt and I were just kind of saying, well, actually, people's stories are quite different, but they're undergoing a journey or an awakening. All these elements are very, we can see them being common to virtually everyone. Well, people that we come across. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, I suppose that, you know, when you look at the toolkit model, if you've been part of Animus and you've seen that, the idea of the opening up is the space where you have to keep coming back to allow them to see what's really going on for them. And then you're loosening and you're challenging them so they look even deeper sort of within, so they start to notice that, okay, maybe they came in because they were unhappy with their job, but maybe it's because there is a calling there to go off and do something completely different with their career, but they just haven't noticed that yet. Yeah, absolutely. Cool, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a bit of a thought about when the call to adventure might not be voluntary, when it might be something that is that we have to do that's forced on us. Thinking about, in particular, I work a lot with sort of care leavers, getting them towards independence, but also you could think about it in terms of that kind of call to, it sounds weird putting it in the call to adventure, but in situations of divorce where it's not a mutual split, for that party that for whom it wasn't that idea, then you know there is that it's not necessarily through choice, but there is the call to adventure has been sort of thrust upon you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that sometimes that's about the idea of the reluctant hero. So something happens to you and you have to become the hero in order to survive it, as opposed to you making a choice to doing something. Yeah. And I think as a coach, that can be really tricky because somebody's coming to you and the world's changed around them. They didn't ask for that change, possibly. And everything's shifting. And how do they now fit in as that shift happens?
Or could that be as a result of perhaps refusing, not listening to the calling? So the opportunity to be a voluntary participant is there for a certain amount of period, and then something major will happen.
Yeah, that's also possible, yeah. So if you're talking about a relationship, perhaps in that relationship there's been signs that something needs to shift and needs to change, and you haven't seen those signs or allowed yourself to ignore those signs, and then something big happens and causes that shift to happen. Yeah, possibly. Anything else anybody would like to share?
We were thinking about the master of the two worlds and how, you know, communications can get distorted if you don't handle it properly. One of the things we were thinking about was that we communicate to probably a core group of people, such as our ideal clients, to get that message out. And if we start, you know, with those small groups, eventually we're able to communicate the change that has taken place.
So is that the change in us or the change that we're creating?
The change that we're related, because they could be in the same position as ourselves. They could, you know, experience changes and then quite know how to communicate that change.
And I think this is one of the challenges that the hero has, is that we've gone through this experience, but how do we communicate that experience with others? Because often we'll You know, it's that thing where, as a coach, you learn this language or this jargon that we talk amongst ourselves whilst we're in training, and then we're talking to other people. They don't know what these words mean. So if you read a really, I don't know, if you read something like The Psychology of Coaching, a wonderful book, but then if you're talking to somebody who hasn't read it or hasn't done any psychology work, they don't understand those terms. So how do we find ways to communicate our journey or our learning with them as well?
I had an idea connected with that, which I really started thinking about what is that language around adventure specifically, and how can we kind of coach and encourage our clients to kind of own that language and understand that journey and that story that they're kind of creating for themselves, so that they kind of own it for themselves, and exactly that, so they can communicate it to other people. So what is that? How does that language perhaps differ from other?
I don't. So the feeling that I get is that it's something to do with metaphor.
Yeah.
That it's something to do with those kind of myths and metaphors, and so that when they tell that story, we can choose the sort of the translation that we have to it and hold on to the meaning in a similar way. But I don't know that. That's just a feeling I have that it's something to do with metaphor. Cool. Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming along this evening and spending your time listening to me and sharing your thoughts and ideas. Thank you all very much. We're going to be moving to the bar for some networking. So come and join the networking. Thank you all very much.